While working as a police officer in Leeds, England in 2012, Jeff Brown had a brief extramarital affair with a married co-worker. After the short-lived relationship ended, they both stayed with their spouses and moved on with their lives. 10 years later, Jeff's daughter, 24-year-old Elena Brown, began harassing the woman's husband on a Facebook page dedicated to his newly established business, calling the former mistress a home-wrecking slag and a tramp. She also used the woman's intimate photos to create a fake profile on an escorting website, listing the husband's cell phone number as the designated contact point. Elena also contacted the woman's daughter, who didn't know about the affair, and promised that her mother's explicit photos would haunt her wherever she goes. But that didn't happen because Elena was arrested for disclosing private images. Prosecutors accused Elena of conspiring with her mother, Sarah Brown, and her sister, Sophie Brown, to humiliate the victim. Elena's defense attorney told a slightly different story, claiming that the young woman had been egged on by her family. In an unexpected turn of events, the defendant changed her plea to guilty during the trial. By then, the victim and her husband had already testified on the stand. The judge considered Elena's timing to be a major aggravating factor in the case and gave her no credit for her guilty plea, as he sentenced her to 3 years in prison. Number 24. Joel Pellot. During the early morning hours one day in September of 2020, 911 operators received a panicked call from Joel Pellot. The nurse anesthetist said he had found his wife, Maria Munoz, dead from a suspected prescription pill overdose. Emergency responders rushed to the Laredo, Texas home, where they declared Munoz dead at 4 o'clock in the morning. Investigators were immediately suspicious of Pellot's demeanor. He was sweating profusely, couldn't answer simple questions about the circumstances surrounding the discovery of his wife's body, and claimed that Munoz had overdosed on pills that were kept in the medicine cabinet rather than near her body. Several suspicious items were found throughout the house, including syringes, a syringe wrapper, and IV equipment. Pellot's strange behavior continued down at the police station, where he cried, screamed, hit the walls and shoved furniture. He said that he and Munoz were separated and that he was living with his girlfriend, claiming that he had stopped at his estranged wife's house to discuss the state of their ailing marriage. In an attempt to guide investigators away from notions of foul play, Pellot implied that Munoz was mentally unstable and struggled with addiction. The evidence told a different story. A toxicology screen revealed that Munoz died from a combination of extremely strong drugs, which are typically used during surgery and can only be administered through an IV. She had an especially high amount of propofol in her system, which was the same drug that killed Michael Jackson, and a pinprick on her arm, indicating that she had been injected with something shortly before her death. Munoz unknowingly helped to solve her own murder by leaving behind a diary which described how she had caught Pellot having an affair with her colleague. Just days before her death, she wrote about how she wanted to heal and move on with her life, and her journal entries conflicted with Pellot's narrative about her being drug-addled and hopeless. Pellot pleaded not guilty to murder and maintained his innocence throughout his trial, even claiming that he had tried to save Munoz by administering Narcan. But it took a jury less than an hour to find him guilty, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Number 23. Diego Costa Silva. In November of 2021, Gardaí were called to a home in Dublin, Ireland, where they found the decapitated remains of 33-year-old Fabiola de Campos Silva. She had been killed by her husband, 35-year-old Diego Costa Silva, who was in the throes of a psychotic episode. Costa Silva admitted to beheading his wife, telling investigators that he believed she was possessed by a snake and that it was necessary to cut her head off to ensure the serpent was dead. He said he was hearing so many voices and believed that there was an electronic device in his ear. Just a few days prior to the killing, a garda had seen Costa Silva running through the street barefoot and wearing only a pair of shorts. In a seemingly distressed and disoriented state, Costa Silva said that he had recently confessed to his wife that he had kissed another woman. He believed Campos Silva was cheating on him for revenge and that she was going to hurt him. The Garda convinced Costa Silva to voluntarily undergo a psychiatric evaluation at a nearby hospital. He returned home the following day after doctors failed to convince him to stay longer. Still convinced that his wife was going to hurt him, Costa Silva started an argument with her and killed her the next morning. He later told investigators that he struck Campos Silva in the head several times with a cup, then choked her unconscious and stabbed her in the heart. After beheading the victim, he called Gardai. In March of 2024, a jury found Costa Silva not guilty by reason of insanity. He was ordered to continue undergoing inpatient treatment at a secure hospital, where he'll remain until he's no longer considered dangerous to himself or others. Number 22. Nathaniel Huy Jr. In September 2023, police in the Chicago suburb of Romeoville, Illinois, found an entire family massacred inside their home. 32-year-old Zoraida Bartolomei, her husband, 38-year-old Alberto Roland, the couple's 2 sons, and the family's 3 pet dogs had all been shot dead in cold blood. Suspecting a love triangle gone wrong, investigators questioned Bartolomei's workplace lover, 32-year-old Nathaniel Huy Jr., and Huy's fiancée, 50-year-old Ermelinda Palomo. They both denied any involvement in the crime, and there wasn't enough evidence to detain or charge them at the time. Law enforcement continued to focus on the couple, who were officially named as suspects a few days later. By then, Huy and Paloma had fled to Catoosa, Oklahoma, where they led police on a high-speed chase that ended in a fiery crash. The pair died in the collision, leaving investigators to rely on other sources to get to the bottom of the murder. After discovering Huy's affair with Bartolomei, Palomo had created fake social media profiles. Posing as high-ranking members of a Mexican cartel, she contacted Huy with details about he and Bartolomei's secret relationship. Using the information in a threatening and intimidating manner, seemingly unaware that Palomo was behind the correspondence, Huy eventually came to believe that the gang was watching him 24/7. Shortly before the murders, Palomo convinced him that Bartolomei was a mole who was planning to attack him. She persuaded Huy to kill the woman and her family, reassuring him that he could get away with it and encouraging him to stage the scene as a burglary gone wrong. These more recent findings offer a much different version of the story than initial news reports, which focused mainly on Huy's suspected role in the murders. At the time, a motive had yet to be uncovered, and the nature of Palomo's involvement was unclear. News reports described Huy as a very dangerous gun-toting security guard who often posted photos of himself with weapons on social media. Palomo's daughter told NBC News that Huy was a huge manipulator who underwent a major personality change in the months leading up to the murders. She said Huy became withdrawn and distant, but she didn't seem to know what caused the sudden shift in his demeanor, or that her mother was also capable of being highly manipulative. Number 21. Denise Malcolm. On Labor Day weekend in 2024, police in Coral Springs, Florida, responded to a 911 call from a teenage boy and his twin brother who said their father had been shot inside their house but was still breathing. Upon arriving at the residence, officers ordered the home's occupants to come outside. The twins exited the residence, but their mother, 45-year-old Denise Nicole Malcolm, remained inside. Moments later, a gunshot rang out from within the home. Denise eventually surrendered, at which point officers entered the house. In a bedroom, they found Denise's husband, 52-year-old Rowan Malcolm, dead in a pool of his own blood with multiple gunshot wounds. After years of being cheated on, Denise was at her wits' end with Rohan's infidelity. The couple no longer shared a bedroom, and their sons described them to police as estranged from one another. On the day of the shooting, Rohan had suddenly announced after a family shopping trip that he was going to hang out with friends. Denise believed he was going to see another woman and a heated argument broke out between the two. 45 minutes into the disagreement, she retrieved a gun and shot Rohan several times. She later told police that Rohan said something that caused her to fire the final gunshot, which the officers outside had overheard. Denise remains held without bail at the Broward County Jail on a first-degree murder charge. Number 20. Christopher Paul Weiss. 24-year-old Valerie Martinez and her young daughter Azaria were gunned down in cold blood at a park in McLennan County, Texas, in November of 2017. Investigators traced the crime to Valerie's recent ex and Azaria's father, Christopher Paul Weiss, who was married and had a family with another woman. Witnesses told investigators that Valerie had recently threatened to take Weiss to court for child support if he wasn't going to be more active in Azaria's life, pointing toward a possible motive for the killings. On the night of the murders, Weiss had reportedly shown up at Valerie's home, where the two argued before leaving in separate cars with their daughter in tow. A search of the suspect's phone revealed that he had conducted several suspicious Google searches about how to make deadly poisons. Weiss denied that Valerie wanted child support and pleaded not guilty to 2 murder charges. He spent more than 2,300 days in pre-trial detention while awaiting trial, marking the longest pending criminal case in McLennan County history. In April of 2024, a jury found Weiss guilty of capital murder after deliberating for just over an hour, landing him an automatic life sentence without parole. Number 19. Gerpreet Singh. An entire household was mercilessly executed at their West Chester, Ohio home in April of 2019, leaving the typically safe community shaken. 39-year-old Shalinderjit Kaur, her parents, 62-year-old Parmjit Kaur, and 59-year-old Hakayakat Singh Panang, and Shalinderjit's aunt, 58-year-old Amarjit Kaur, had all been shot multiple times in the head. Witnesses reported seeing a suspicious male figure lurking around the property, but were unable to identify him. Naturally, the police turned their attention to Shalinderjit's husband, Gerpreet Singh, who claimed that he discovered the victim's body when he arrived home from working on his semi-truck. He was initially cooperative but became agitated when investigators asked to perform a gun residue test on his hands. A warrant was obtained and the results were positive. Other evidence indicated that Singh had entered the home 40 minutes prior to calling the police. Singh also denied having a long-term affair with a woman in Indiana, claiming he was completely faithful to Shalinderjit. Detectives soon discovered that this was a lie and that Singh saw his mistress weekly during his travels as a commercial truck driver. He was in dire financial straits due to the amount of money he was spending on his mistress, which included a $20,000 down payment for a house as well as a car. 2 months after the killings, Singh was charged with 4 counts of aggravated murder. He maintained his innocence throughout the court proceedings, and in 2022, the first trial ended in a mistrial. Prosecutors retried the case in 2024, and the jury found Singh guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to death despite an indefinite moratorium on executions in Ohio due to a shortage of lethal execution drugs, leaving the future of the state's condemned prisoners unclear. Number 18. Kimberly and Molly Con. In July of 2022, a Michigan man in his late 40s named Matthew Molly Con decided it was time to end his wife's affair for good. At around 9:30 p.m. one evening, he and his wife, 49-year-old Kimberly and Molly Con, drove to the Ray Township home of Danielle Giannone, who was outside cooking on his grill. Matthew would later tell investigators that he had planned to tell Giannone to stop contacting Kimberly. A verbal argument quickly broke out between the two men, who soon began shooting at each other. After being struck in the leg by one of the bullets, Giannone went inside his house to retrieve another gun. In the meantime, Matthew retreated to his vehicle. As he backed out of the driveway, Giannone reappeared and resumed shooting, fatally striking Kimberly in the neck. In less than 2 minutes, more than 30 shots had been exchanged. While Matthew didn't fire the shot that killed his wife, prosecutors blamed him for creating the violent situation in the first place and charged him with multiple crimes. During his trial, the court heard about how Matthew had suspected Kimberly of restarting her years-long affair with Giannone. In May of 2024, a jury found Matthew guilty of voluntary manslaughter, attempted murder, and 3 counts of using a firearm in the commission of a felony. He was sentenced to 7 to 15 years for the manslaughter charge, 12 to 40 years for assault with the intent to murder, and 6 years for the gun charges. Number 17. Peter Berger. Late one night in 1998, a Ford F-150 pickup truck barreled through a guardrail along a steep mountainside service road overlooking Nevada's Washoe Lake. It plunged 800 feet down a cliff, taking with it 49-year-old Renette Berger, who was riding in the passenger seat. Renette died from her injuries. Her husband, 45-year-old Peter Berger, was found dangling perilously from the side of the mountain about 80 feet below the road. He had survived the ordeal with just a broken foot and was even able to pull his phone out of his pocket and dial 911. Peter claimed that the truck's brakes had failed while he smoked a cigar out the open window. He said he was ejected from the vehicle as it careened off the cliff, but the evidence told a different story. The guardrail looked like someone had T-boned it deliberately, and Peter's truck was only a year old, making it seem unlikely that the brakes had failed. Moreover, Peter was wearing a winter coat even though it was summer, and his injuries were inconsistent with having been ejected from a vehicle. He was also very clean, rather than covered in dirt and scrapes, like one would expect. On the surface, the Bergers seemed to have a perfect life. Peter was a wealthy art dealer, while Renette also had a high-paying career and frequently traveled to Europe for work. But a closer look revealed that the couple's 11-year marriage was on the rocks and most likely heading toward a divorce. In addition to being tired of Renette's frequent travel, Peter was reportedly bitter toward her for refusing to have children with him. During police questioning, Peter mentioned out of the blue that he hadn't cheated on Renette, which only furthered law enforcement's suspicions against him. When asked about his strained marriage, he claimed that he and Renette had decided to try working through their problems. Multiple women soon came forward with claims that Peter had been hitting on them during Renette's business trips. Peter maintained his innocence as a years-long investigation ensued. During that time, he cashed in on Renette's $450,000 life insurance policy, using much of the money to travel the world. Prosecutors tried Peter on a murder case in 2001, arguing that he wanted out of his marriage and that Renette was worth more to him dead than alive. It ended in a hung jury, and the case went to trial again in 2002. This time, the jury found Peter guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 years to life and will become eligible for parole in 2025. Peter unsuccessfully appealed his case numerous times and has never admitted his guilt. Number 16. Christopher Astin Mottry. In March of 2024, a fisherman noticed some human toes sticking out of a garbage bag near the Flint River in Genesee County, Michigan. The body belonged to 48-year-old mother of 7, Christina Elizabeth Barber, who had been reported missing several days earlier by a concerned co-worker. She had failed to show up at work for about a week and wasn't answering her phone, which was out of character. The day before Barber's body was found, police paid a visit to the hotel room where she had been staying. They found obvious signs of foul play, including blood-soaked bedding. A review of the hotel surveillance footage showed Barber entering the room 6 days earlier with her married boyfriend, 34-year-old Christopher Astin Mottry. The following night, Mottry left the room with a large bag, and Barber was never seen walking out of the hotel. The two had met while working together at a Burger King restaurant, where Barber was Mottry's manager. Their relationship was reportedly fraught with abuse, which included a prior incident where Mottry had ripped the door handles off Barber's car in their work parking lot. He had also threatened to kill Barber on multiple occasions, and it appeared that he had finally made good on his word. Mottry remains held without bond on charges of first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, concealing the death of an individual, and domestic violence. His wife is reportedly cooperating with the investigation and has been ruled out as a suspect. Number 15. Marquis Rochard Glasper. 35-year-old Crystal Lynch was reported missing in Houston, Texas in May of 2023 by her teenage daughter, who told police that her stepfather, 37-year-old Marquis Rochard Glasper, had been acting strange. The young woman suspected that Glasper was using her mother's phone to send her text messages, which resembled her stepfather's manner of speaking but seemed out of character for her mother. Prior to her disappearance, Lynch had been having an extramarital affair and had commented to others about how Glasper would kill her if he ever found out. Investigators found blood-stained evidence in her Jeep and inside the home she shared with Glasper, along with a bullet fragment in the couple's bedroom. Glasper was unable to account for his whereabouts over a several-hour period when Lynch went missing, and although she's never been found, prosecutors are certain that she was murdered by her husband. 6 months after Lynch vanished, Glasper was charged with her murder. He remains held without bond at the Harris County Jail amid the ongoing case. Number 14. Horis Roberts Jr. Co-workers Horis Roberts Jr. and Terry Cheek were both married with children when they began an affair in 1998. After their partners eventually discovered the affair, they moved out of their homes and got an apartment together in Temecula, California, late one evening in April of that year. Cheek vanished after stopping at the home of her estranged husband, Googie Harris Sr., whom she was in the process of divorcing. Following Cheek's disappearance, Roberts' truck was found along a highway with its hazard lights flashing. Harris initially told police that Cheek had left his house in the vehicle, only to later change his story and claim that she was driving her Volkswagen Rabbit on the night in question. 4 days later, Cheek was found murdered by a lake not far from where Roberts' truck had been parked. Roberts didn't want anyone to know about his affair with Cheek, even though his wife had already found out about it, because he was Cheek's supervisor at their workplace. He gave conflicting stories about his whereabouts on the night of the crime, quickly landing himself a spot at the very top of the suspect list. In addition to Roberts' suspicious behavior after the murder, he and Cheek had argued on the night of her death, and he had called in sick to his job. He was charged with murder, and the first 2 trials ended in hung juries. Roberts was found guilty in the 3rd trial, resulting in a life sentence. He maintained his innocence and appealed his case several times, but he came no closer to freedom until the Innocence Project got involved. In 2013, newly discovered DNA evidence proved Roberts' innocence, and he was released in 2018 after serving 20 years. His conviction was overturned and he has since been fully exonerated. DNA from beneath Cheek's fingernails turned up as a match to her estranged husband's nephew, 58-year-old Joaquin Leal. According to prosecutors, Harris, who is now 67 years old, was worried about losing his house in the divorce, so he enlisted Leal to murder Cheek. After the new evidence came to light, both men were charged with murder. Harris's 45-year-old son, Googie Rene Harris Jr., pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact for helping to dispose of Cheek's body and testified against his father and cousin in exchange for leniency. In August of 2024, Leal and Harris Sr. were convicted of first-degree murder along with a special circumstance of murder for financial gain. The jury recommended a life imprisonment without parole for Leal and the death penalty for Harris Sr., both of whom are currently awaiting sentencing. Number 13. Patricia Birmingham. After discovering his wife Patricia's affair in December of 2021, Carrie Birmingham confronted her outside the couple's Spring, Texas home. After about 30 minutes of arguing, Carrie lost all composure and told Patricia that she was going to meet Jesus. As he pointed a gun at her, he proceeded to shoot his wife 3 times and could be heard saying, "I hope it was worth it." Patricia captured her terrifying final moments on cell phone video. The footage contained several minutes of arguing, which the defense showcased in court to support their argument that Carey had acted in the heat of the moment rather than in a premeditated fashion. In a further attempt to prove that he was willing to take responsibility for his actions, Carey pleaded guilty to a murder charge, leaving the jury tasked with deciding his punishment. In a decision that seemed to shock even the judge, the jury recommended a 10-year prison sentence, just half of the 20-year maximum that Carey could have received. He will become eligible for parole after serving just 5 years, but will remain in prison no later than February of 2034. Carey and Kimberly's teenage daughter, Olivia, who was at school at the time of the murder, told ABC 13 that she found her father's sudden passion defense questionable at best. She said she'll always love her dad, but that she could never forgive him. Olivia also told the news outlet that she never saw Carey physically abusing her mother, but that Kimberly had suffered other types of mistreatment, including financial and emotional abuse. For several years, up to 2014, former U.S. Navy service member Matthew Sullivan and his wife, Elizabeth, had been having marital problems. The San Diego couple had a history of domestic violence and fights over the custody of their 2 young daughters. About a month after Sullivan had learned that his wife was having an affair, the woman went missing. It was Sullivan who'd reported her disappearance to the police. 2 years later, as the man was moving away with his new girlfriend, Elizabeth's body was found at the edge of the San Diego Bay. The body was badly deteriorated but showed evidence of repeated stab wounds, which had shattered the woman's ribcage. Investigators argued that the body had been hidden somewhere else, most likely a freezer, before being dumped in the bay. The timeline of its discovery was tied to Sullivan moving to the East Coast. The murder weapon was discovered in the attic above the couple's bedroom, and traces of blood were found on the bedroom floor. Sullivan was eventually found guilty of second-degree murder. In November of 2020, Rosa Legrand and her boyfriend Darnell Mans got into a domestic argument at the home they shared in Naperville Township, Illinois. Legrand had confronted Mans after learning that he was involved with another woman. The argument escalated and Mans started to pack his bags with the intention of moving out. That's when Legrand shot him. The 34-year-old woman then video called Mans' lover while he was lying in a pool of blood in the background. There was no audio on the video, but someone off camera, most likely Legrand, was seen kicking Mans while he was down. The woman then called a relative to take her 4 youngest children, who were waiting outside in a car. During the call, she claimed that she'd be imprisoned for life. Mans was hospitalized with a bullet lodged in his spine and was later pronounced dead. The case is ongoing, but Legrand is expected to be charged with murder in the first degree. Number 12. Bullant Yuk. In the spring of 2021, Turkish woman Beyza Yurtas ended the relationship with her boyfriend Bullant Yuk after finding out that he was married. In the meantime, Yuksek's wife had also discovered the affair. The man then reached out to 24-year-old Yurtas and asked to meet up. She reluctantly agreed, and they saw each other on March the 31st in the district of Alanya, in the southern province of Antalya. Upon encountering Yurtas, Yuksek dragged her into his car, locked the doors and started beating her. He then video called his wife during the onslaught to show her what he was doing. In a twisted attempt at making amends for cheating on her, Yuksek reportedly asked his spouse if she liked it, to which the unnamed woman reportedly replied, "I love it. Hit her once again. This time, hit her for me." Yurtas was subsequently taken to a hospital. She later posted photos of her injuries online and wrote about what happened, claiming she lived in fear for her life. Yurtas reported that her ex was simply released after being interviewed by local police, when her posts went viral, attracting attention to the case. A warrant was reportedly issued by the prosecutor's office and Yuksek was taken into custody. Number 11. Chelsea Ann Marie Shipp. On March the 27th of 2022, deputies in West Jefferson County, Texas, responded to reports of a shooting in the 14,000 block of Kolb's Corner. Deputies arrived at the home of 22-year-old Cody Arnold, where they found the blanket-wrapped body of his living girlfriend. Teenager Caitlin Nicole Stone Arnold was taken into custody, and after being read his Miranda rights, he told the officers that Stone was possibly pregnant. A woman named Brandy Moon was the one who'd alerted the authorities regarding Stone's killing. She reported that the teenager had visited her on March the 25th along with Arnold and 24-year-old Chelsea Ann Marie Shipp. It was later revealed that Arnold was cheating on Stone with Shipp. The day after the visit, the latter asked Moon to borrow her car, claiming she had some business to take care of. Upon returning the vehicle, Shipp admitted that she'd shot Stone, gesturing a pistol with her hand and adding, "He asked me to take care of a problem and how he has to do what he has to do." She had also confessed the crime to Moon's nephew, whom he asked for help with moving the body. He refused and later spoke to the police. Investigators discovered that Shipp had told Arnold he'd be in trouble for getting Stone pregnant because of her age. It was suspected that he consequently asked Shipp to kill her. Following his arrest, Arnold admitted to law enforcement that Shipp had been the shooter. Both were arrested on murder charges, and each was held on a $1 million bond. Number 10. Payman Thu. Feeling cut off from her relationship with boyfriend, Payman Thu, Australian woman Jacqueline Sabana Bonner Musa got into her Toyota Kluger and went to his home in Wentworth Point on June the 27th of 2020. Musa had repeatedly tried to reach 31-year-old Thajapur on his phone, but he wasn't responding. When she arrived at his home, Musa found him in the company of another woman while in his underwear. Musa then got in her Toyota and accelerated towards Thajapur. She struck him with the vehicle and drove through a bollard with him pinned under the hood before fatally crushing him against the car park wall. Musa then called the emergency services to say, "I just hit him and he's dead." The woman was arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison with a non-parole period of 14 years in March of 2023. The sentencing judge described the murder as a crime of passion and a fatal explosion of emotion that was out of Musa's character, as she hadn't previously gotten in trouble with the law. The judge also noted that 47-year-old Musa was living with untreated PTSD, anxiety, and depression caused by what she'd experienced as a child when she'd fled poverty and war in Sudan. Number 9. Austin Hoff. Texas man Austin Hoff, aged 29, was sentenced to 23 years in prison in the spring of 2023 for the murder of Stephen Center in Spring several years prior. Hoff, who'd grown up in Spring, had relocated to Austin after finding work as an auto mechanic. He convinced his girlfriend, whose identity wasn't released, to move in with him. Their relationship unraveled after the woman had caught Hoff cheating on her. She subsequently returned to Spring and started dating someone else. In the aftermath of their breakup, Hoff began stalking and harassing the woman. On September the 5th of 2016, he went to his ex's Spring home, parked outside and waited roughly 3 hours for her. The woman returned accompanied by Center, her new boyfriend. A confrontation ensued when Hoff tried to force his way inside the woman's residence. Center pushed him away, at which point Hoff brandished a pistol and shot him in the chest, killing him. Hoff then removed the shirt he was wearing and started driving back to Austin, but was called by his father, who persuaded him to return to the scene of the crime. Deputies from the Harris County Sheriff's Office were already on location, and they arrested Hoff. In his car, law enforcement found his shirt and the murder weapon, both of which were covered in Center's blood. Hoff was convicted and sentenced after 7 days of testimonies. District Attorney Andrew Figluizzi explained that his 23-year sentence was a tribute to Center's age when he was killed. Figluizzi described the case as one of entitlement and was quoted as saying that Hoff had felt entitled to take back his ex-girlfriend and entitled to kill her new boyfriend. Number 8. Patrick Carney. Country singer Michelle Branch met Patrick Carney, the drummer for the Black Keys rock duo, at a Grammy party in 2015. They co-produced Branch's third studio album called Hopeless Romantic and started dating. The couple had a son in 2018 and got married the following year. In February of 2022, Branch gave birth to their daughter. A few months later, on August the 11th, Branch took to social media and announced her separation from the drummer, whom she accused of cheating on her with his manager while she was at home with their 6-month-old baby. The following day, Branch was arrested on charges of domestic assault after she'd slapped Carney in the face during a dispute at their home. The charges were dropped at the request of the state less than 2 weeks later, and updates on the couple's marriage indicated that they'd suspended divorce proceedings and were in therapy together. In an interview for The Cut, Branch reported that she and Carney were committed to working on their relationship and denied rumors that she was an abusive partner. Branch was quoted as saying that violence was never the answer and urging readers, don't slap somebody even if you find out that they were cheating on you. Number 7. Eric Lam Mountain. In late December of 2022, Texas man Eric Lam Mountain learned that his girlfriend had been cheating on him with 37-year-old Gavin Wood. Following the affair's discovery, the unnamed woman broke up with Lam Mountain on January the 8th of 2023. 2 days later, the scorned boyfriend sent his ex a message that read, "I told you what I would do if you ever cheated on me, and I still have his address." Lam Mountain had obtained Wood's Austin address by tracking his ex-girlfriend through a location sharing app. During the message exchange, the woman asked Lam Mountain if he was going to kill her, to which he reportedly replied, "Not you," before sending her a photo of a gun and a screenshot from a ride-sharing app indicating he was on his way to Wood's home. The woman, who wasn't at the address at the time, tried to warn her new boyfriend, but he reportedly didn't consider Lam Mountain to be a legitimate threat and told her to return to the home. She was on her way back when she received a call from her ex, who told her that he'd gunned down Wood. The woman consequently alerted the authorities, and Lam Mountain was arrested shortly after the shooting. He told law enforcement that upon arriving at the address, he found Wood standing in the front yard. Lam Mountain then proceeded to pistol whip the victim. When Wood turned and ran away, Lam Mountain shot at him until he emptied his gun. Updates on the matter indicated that Lam Mountain had been booked at the Travis County Jail on $1 million bond. Number 6. Amber Mullins and Ashley Klein. In September of 2022, South Carolina woman Amber Mullins confronted her live-in boyfriend about cheating on her with 27-year-old Ashley Klein. The latter was at the couple's Myrtle Beach home when the argument broke out in the bedroom on September the 8th. Mullins then reportedly told the unnamed man, "Hold on, I've got something for you." The 22-year-old went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and then returned to the bedroom. As Klein held the boyfriend down, Mullins stabbed him in the neck and leg. The man survived the knifing while his two lovers were arrested. Klein was charged with assault and battery and released from jail on a $7,500 personal recognizance bond. Mullins was arrested for assault and battery of a high and aggravated nature and possession of a weapon during a dangerous crime. She was held in jail without bond due to her pre-existing legal problems. At the time that she attacked her cheating boyfriend, the woman had been released on home detention on a $65,000 bond for 2 counts of attempted murder. Horry County Police had arrested Mullins in June for a drive-by shooting. From her car, she'd opened fire on 2 people in the Waccamaw Boulevard area. Number 5. Emma Delaney Hancock. A substitute teacher from Oklahoma faced felony charges in the spring of 2023 that stemmed from her allegedly having had inappropriate contact with one of her students. A probe into the case was launched by the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, or OSBI, on November the 8th of 2022. About a month prior, Emma Delaney Hancock, a substitute teacher at Wellston Public School, had asked for a student's phone number in order to text him about an assignment. A few months later, the teen sent Hancock a shirtless photo of himself on Snapchat. The conversation indicated that Hancock was initially fearful about losing her job, but she eventually sent the student a photo of her exposed breasts. Hancock was married to the Chief of Police, Alfred Hancock, and the daughter of Wellston Mayor Paul Whitnar. From October the 23rd to 30th, she and the student continued exchanging explicit photos and videos. On Halloween, Hancock subbed in a home economics class and during the lunch break, reportedly asked the student if he wanted to make out. He agreed and they went into the classroom pantry, where the teacher aggressively kissed him. On November the 3rd, Hancock subbed in a biology class and again, kissed the student and also reportedly touched him in the crotch area. As rumors about the illicit relationship started circulating in the school, Hancock was approached by another student and asked if they were true. The teacher confirmed the affair and also reportedly told the student that they were not going to get caught. The investigation into the matter was carried out by OSBI to prevent conflicts of interest, since Hancock's husband was the Wellston police chief. During a court appearance in April, Hancock pleaded not guilty to all of her charges, and her next court date was scheduled for June the 22nd of 2023. Number 4. Chasey Pointer. On September the 9th of 2016, law enforcement in Royce City, Texas, received a frantic call from Chasey Pointer, who claimed that her husband had been gunned down on a country road. The victim was identified as Robert Pointer, a 47-year-old firefighter. He was found slumped over in the couple's Jeep after having sustained a shotgun blast to the head. Body cam footage from responding officers would show 29-year-old Chasey distraught and hyperventilating while trying to explain to officers what had happened. She claimed that she only saw the shadow of a man approach their vehicle after it had gotten stuck in the mud, and then ran away after the suspect had shot her husband. Royce City Police Sergeant Shane Meek found it suspicious that the killer hadn't executed Chasey as well. He would later report feeling that the woman was hiding something, as she kept adding different twists and turns and pieces of information that just weren't fitting in place of the puzzle. Upon being questioned further at the station, Chasey revealed that she'd been having an affair with a man by the name of Michael Garza. It would later emerge that he was just one of several lovers with whom she'd been cheating on her husband. The woman gradually turned from a victim into a suspect in the views of investigators. She also claimed during the police interviews that Robert had been abusive towards her, accusations subsequently found to have been unsubstantiated. During the 8-hour interrogation, she eventually admitted that she and Garza had tried to give Robert a taste of his own medicine and show him how it felt to be bullied. Chasey confessed that she had lured her husband to the rural road by falsely claiming her Jeep was stuck. It was there that Garza shot him dead. Chasey told the police that she'd only meant to scare her estranged husband and that Garza had acted on his own in killing him. However, that would prove to be a lie. In light of his wife's affairs, Robert had recently stated an intention of filing for divorce and seeking custody of their daughter. A prenuptial agreement meant that Chasey wasn't likely to receive much in the separation, but she was the sole beneficiary of Robert's life insurance policy worth an estimated $680,000. During Chasey's 2019 trial, the prosecution argued that she'd manipulated her lover into killing her husband by taking advantage of his feelings for her and through fabricated claims that Robert was abusing her. She'd at one point contacted Garza to say, "I can't love you unless Robert is out of the picture." Both she and Garza were ultimately found guilty of Robert's murder. Chasey was sentenced to life without parole, while her lover was given 99 years. Number 3. Carla Vasquez. In the summer of 2016, Florida woman Carla Vasquez called her husband, David Pacheco, to report that 2 men were sitting in her car outside the couple's home. The man, who was working a night shift at the time, rushed to their residence and found that 32-year-old Vasquez and her car were missing. He called the woman, who told him that she'd been abducted and was being held hostage. Pacheco alerted law enforcement and they launched a search for Vasquez, who worked as a bartender at a gentleman's club. Miami police tracked Vasquez using her phone and, at around 3 p.m. on the day that the kidnapping was reported, found her driving through the city in the car in which she'd claimed to have been abducted. She was in the company of a man whom she admitted hadn't harmed or mistreated her. Upon questioning, Vasquez confessed that she'd met the man during her shift at Styx. They went bar hopping and ended up spending the night at his place. Vasquez's companion was also interviewed by the police and he showed the officers photos that they'd taken during the bar crawl, clearly indicating that the woman had at no point been in danger. She'd made up the abduction story in an ill-advised attempt at preventing Pacheco from finding out she'd cheated on him. The woman was charged with providing a false report of a crime, punishable with up to a year in jail and/or a $1,000 fine. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and maybe it will be your video that we'll be doing next. Number 2. Kelly Hayes and Sydney Parham. In July of 2020, Wisconsin woman Kelly Hayes was jailed for setting her ex-boyfriend's car on fire in Madison. On July the 22nd, the woman went to her ex's neighborhood as she was reportedly enraged because he'd cheated on her. 34-year-old Hayes used a baseball bat to shatter the windows of the man's Chevy Impala. She then poured gasoline inside and threw a match, sparking the blaze which completely destroyed the vehicle. The local fire department managed to put out the blaze, and Hayes was identified as the culprit after witnesses had written down her license plate. The police tracked down the scorned woman and arrested her on charges of arson and causing criminal damage to property. Hayes' fiery revenge occurred on the same day and under similar circumstances to that of Michigan woman Sydney Parham. She too was reported to have sought payback against an ex by setting his car on fire. The Fraser woman's plan, however, backfired dramatically after dumping gasoline on the SUV's back seat. She ignited it with a stick lighter. The SUV exploded into a fireball, sending the woman tumbling backwards into a parked sedan. Footage of the incident went viral in the aftermath. The Macomb County Sheriff's Office confirmed that Parham was the woman in the video after they'd arrested her. Injuries from the fireball exploding in her face were still visible in her mugshot. After initially being charged with felony arson, the 27-year-old pleaded down to a misdemeanor and was given probation for 18 months. Number 1. Robert Wayne Feldman. In April of 2022, roughly 7 years after the death of 44-year-old Stacy Feldman, a jury found her husband guilty of murder. On March the 1st of 2015, Robert Wayne Feldman made a frantic phone call to law enforcement in Denver, Colorado, to report that he found his wife unresponsive in the bathtub with the water still running. The woman had injuries on her body, but they were explained as attempts made by her husband to perform CPR on her. Robert would express suspicions that Stacy had suffered some form of health complication from having consumed edible marijuana the previous night. However, no trace of THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, was found in her system. Stacy's cause of death was listed as undetermined. As the investigation into the matter progressed, detectives learned that Robert had been having an affair. A woman had emailed Stacy on the day of her death to ask if Robert was really divorced. He'd met the unnamed woman on Tinder, they'd gone on several dates, and they'd been intimate. Robert convinced his mistress that his surname was Wolf and that he was going through a divorce. However, the woman found him on Facebook, discovered that he was still married, and contacted Stacy. Phone records indicated that the latter called back immediately, and thus Robert's cheating was uncovered. The women reportedly shared their anger at having been deceived by him. Stacy revealed that he'd been unfaithful to her in the past and told the other woman that she was done with him. A few hours later, she was dead. Investigators also found out that Robert subsequently cashed in on her $750,000 life insurance policy. Moreover, he'd reportedly been uncooperative with first responders who'd arrived at their home on the day of the incident and refused to allow for an autopsy. The case was reviewed in 2017 by a national expert on domestic violence-related strangulation and suffocation injuries. They concluded that Stacy had been subjected to a prolonged beating and then fatally strangled. Investigators thus determined that she'd confronted Robert about the affair, threatening to divorce him, at which point he killed her. Robert was arrested on murder charges in February of 2018 and subsequently sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Number 9. Jelicia Lawrence. On July the 18th of 2020, a 34-year-old man refused to argue with his estranged girlfriend, believing that he was avoiding conflict. However, confrontation was the sole purpose of 29-year-old Jelicia Lawrence when she showed up at the unnamed victim's home in Shreveport, Louisiana. Facing his complete refusal, the woman pulled out a gun, shot him, and fled the scene. Police patrol officers, who responded to reports of a shooting, found the man lying on the sidewalk, fighting for his life. He'd suffered a single gunshot wound and was taken to the hospital, where doctors performed life-saving surgery on him. Lawrence's criminal action sparked a police hunt that lasted several days, but she eventually turned herself in. She's expected to be charged with attempted murder in the 2nd degree. Number 8. Emma Jane Magson. A night out in Leicester, England, ended in disaster for 26-year-old James Knight. On March the 27th of 2016, he and his 28-year-old girlfriend Emma Jane Magson were in a cab, going home after a night of drinking. They began arguing so intensely that the driver asked them to get out of the vehicle. They started walking as they continued to fight, and at some point, Knight pushed Magson into a parked car, making her fall to the ground. The argument continued after they arrived at Magson's apartment. At some point during their escalating confrontation, the woman grabbed a steak knife and stabbed her boyfriend through the chest, inflicting a wound 4.5 inches deep. She then waited 45 minutes to call the emergency services. The neighbors were reportedly awoken by Knight as he was screaming that his heart was bleeding. When Magson finally called the emergency services, she lied to the dispatcher about the gravity of her boyfriend's wounds and didn't mention that she'd stabbed him.
Ambulance, tell me exactly what's happened.
I don't know. My boyfriend's here and he's making weird noises.
Right, what was he doing to make... What?
I don't know. He's got a lot of blood in him. James, look at me, please.
Do you want an ambulance to come and take him to the hospital?
I don't know. I don't know if there's something up with him or he's just playing me about.
Is his eyes open at all? Is he awake?
Well, to be honest, it looks like he's sleeping, but it ain't how he normally sleeps because I live with him, so it ain't how he normally sleeps, that makes sense.
Right.
It looks like he's had a fight with someone.
We'll get someone sent over to him. It's been arranged. I mean, it might take a while, so I do apologise. It's bank holiday weekend and we're getting absolutely...
No, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
You've been out drinking all night?
Yeah, if I'm a bit honest, I think he took some drugs. I just think he's too smashed. That's what I think.
Knight eventually died, and even though she claimed to have acted in self-defense, Magson was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Number 7. Cordelia Farrell. It's getting worse and worse, and one of us is going to end up dead. 38-year-old Cordelia Farrell told police officers after being arrested for the assault of her 36-year-old boyfriend, Wayne Coventry. The British couple had been involved in what their friends and family described as a toxic relationship. In September of 2019, Farrell attacked her lover, allegedly dragging him by his testicles and biting his private parts. 1 month later, Coventry and Farrell got into an argument at the home of the former's brother in Bromsgrove, Worcestershire. As the fight got heated, Farrell grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed her partner to death, piercing his chest and puncturing his aorta. The horrific scene happened in front of their friends, who later said they saw the woman grinning as she was pulling the knife out of the man's chest. At first, Farrell fled the scene, but later turned herself in to the authorities. In October of 2020, she was jailed for 10 years by the Worcester Crown Court for the manslaughter of her boyfriend. Number 6. Emily Javier. Emily Javier waited until her boyfriend Alex Lovell was in bed before attacking him with a samurai sword, after she'd become suspicious that Lovell was cheating on her. First, she found the Tinder app installed on his phone. Then she found strands of red hair in the shower drain at their home in Washington, USA. The woman reached her boiling point after Lovell came home one evening and ignored her. She went and taped a samurai sword to the side of their bed, and when they went to sleep, she hid his phone so that he couldn't call for help. When the lights went out, Javier reached for the sword and launched a frenzied attack, leaving Lovell with numerous stabs and cut wounds. As the man lay curled up in a pool of his own blood, Javier decided to call 911.
911, can I help you?
I just stabbed my boyfriend.
Okay, what is the address there? Okay, and tell me what happened. Okay, what?
I stabbed him.
Okay, is he awake?
He's dead. I think he's dead.
Okay, what is your name?
Emily.
Okay, where did you stab him?
He's sleeping in the bedroom.
No, where on his body? Where on his body?
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Okay. Can you get a clean, dry cloth or a towel and put it right on the wound? Okay, Emily, where is the knife right now?
It's by him. I used a sword.
You used a sword? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Emily, they're on their way as fast as they can. Is your door unlocked already?
Lovell was taken to the hospital, where doctors had to reattach some of his fingers and managed to save his life. Javier pleaded guilty to attempted first-degree domestic violence murder in court and was sentenced to 19 years in prison. Number 5. Thomasine Bennett. 67-year-old Thomasine Bennett was arrested in February 2017 after beating her boyfriend to death with a metal bat for 36 hours straight. She and 63-year-old boyfriend Walter Mack Clark were at Bennett's apartment in Northeast Washington. On February the 17th, officers received complaints of disturbance from Bennett's neighbors. They went to investigate and were met by Bennett, who took them to see the unresponsive naked body of her boyfriend, barricaded in a closet in a fetal position. She complained that Clark had made her smoke a drug called Love Boat, a mixture of marijuana and embalming fluid. She then told them she'd been beating him with a baseball bat for the past day and a half. Clark was taken to Howard University Hospital, where he was pronounced dead from multiple blunt force trauma. Bennett was arrested and pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter in July of 2017. The woman was sentenced to 10 years in prison by the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. Number 4. Samantha Oken. Just a couple of days before Christmas on December the 23rd of 2013, 41-year-old Samantha Oken and her musician boyfriend, Peter Davigan, were drinking at the latter's apartment in Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire, England. An argument erupted between the two, and in a drunken row, Oken began hitting her partner with her fists, feet, and a metal guitar stand until he became unresponsive. Instead of immediately phoning for help, Oken called her daughter, telling her she'd gotten in a fight with Davigan and that in self-defense she'd left him unconscious. The woman's daughter urged her to call for help, but the woman said she needed to change her clothes first, as they were covered in blood. She then proceeded to smoke cannabis, and only after 40 minutes did she finally call the emergency services. Paramedics arrived at the scene to find that Davigan had suffered internal bruising and bleeding and alerted the police. At first, Oken claimed she'd merely pushed her partner while trying to defend herself during the fight. However, post-mortem tests revealed that Davigan had been hit even when he was on the ground in a curled-up position. The woman was found guilty of murder and consequently jailed for life. Number 3. Sarah Boone. What a 42-year-old Florida woman first described as a game of hide-and-seek gone wrong was later revealed to have been a revenge murder. Sarah Boone and her boyfriend Jorge Torres had been drinking at their home in Winter Park on the night of February the 24th of 2020. At some point, Torres thought it would be funny to get inside a suitcase. Boone then zipped him up and left him there for over 11 hours, after allegedly passing out in her bed for most of the night. The next morning, in her call to 911, the woman claimed it had been an accident.
Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what, ma'am?
No, I pulled him out of the suitcase. I tried giving him CPR.
Okay, so he was in a suitcase?
Yes, and I fell asleep.
How old is the boyfriend, ma'am? 42-year-old male. All right. Is he awake at all? Is he conscious at all?
No, he's purple.
Is he breathing?
No.
All right. I need you to get him on the floor, flat on his back for me, okay?
I did. I tried giving him CPR.
All right.
I tried giving him CPR.
Yeah, okay.
But nothing happened. He's purple.
Are you right by him now?
Yes.
Okay. Lay him flat on his. Okay, ma'am. All right, listen to me. Listen to me. I want you to lay him flat on his back for me on the floor.
I did.
Removing the pillows. Okay.
Yes, I did.
All right. Okay.
He's stiff and purple.
However, investigators found that the man's eye was bruised and that he had a cut on his lip. It was later revealed that Boone had recorded her lover throughout the night as he was struggling to get out of the suitcase and slowly dying of asphyxiation, as he was begging to be freed because he couldn't breathe. Boone replied that it was how she felt when Torres would cheat on her. Sarah Boone was arrested on charges of second-degree murder. Number 2. Jodi Aras. A fatal attraction that led to a young man's bloody death is how prosecutors framed the murder of 32-year-old Travis Alexander at the hands of his girlfriend, Jodi Aras. In June of 2008, Aras stabbed Alexander 27 times, slit his throat, and shot him in the head at his home in Mesa, Arizona. The incident occurred only months after they had broken up their relationship, which was described as unusually tumultuous by their friends. In early 2008, Alexander told some of his acquaintances that he'd ended things with Arias after around a year of relationship. However, it's believed that they'd continue to see each other in secret solely for intercourse. In April, Alexander changed his travel companion for an upcoming work trip from Arias to another female friend. Shortly after that, on May the 28th, the home of Arias's grandparents allegedly got broken into by burglars. At the time, a .25 caliber automatic Colt pistol was stolen. In early June, after not being able to reach Alexander for several days, a group of his friends decided to check on him at his home. When they entered the residence, they found large pools of blood in the hallway and discovered his lifeless body in the master bedroom with a .25 caliber round next to him. In the 911 call, Alexander's friends mentioned Arias as a possible suspect.
Oh my God.
911 emergency. Hi, Daphne. What's going on?
What?
What's going on?
A friend of ours is dead in his bedroom. We hadn't heard from him for a while. We think he's dead. His roommate just went in there and said there's lots of blood. I didn't go in, but I can give you the phone to someone who went in there.
Yes, please. Can you?
Hello.
Hi. So what's going on?
He's dead. He's in his bedroom.
Okay.
In the shower.
Okay. How did this happen? Do you have any idea?
No, we have no idea. Everyone's been wondering about him for a few days.
She said that there was blood. So is it coming from his head? Did he cut his head?
It's all over the place.
Okay. He has an ex-girlfriend that's been bothering him and following him and slashing tires and things like that. Her name is Jodi.
Well, I'm just going to keep you on the phone until officers arrive. Either officers or paramedics arrive, okay?
Okay, I think I can hear the sirens now.
The woman was arrested a month later and initially pled not guilty. She admitted to killing Alexander 2 years later, claiming it had been in self-defense. However, following several years of trials and appeals, Arias was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Number 1. Unnamed Moroccan woman. After a 7-year relationship with her boyfriend, a 30-year-old Moroccan woman experienced a moment of insanity when the man told her he was going to marry another woman. In the summer of 2018, the man's brother declared him missing after visiting the couple's home in Al Ain, United Arab Emirates, to ask his girlfriend about his whereabouts. The woman said she'd kicked him out of their home and that she didn't know where he was. About 3 months later, in November, the brother claimed to have found a human tooth inside the woman's blender. DNA tests confirmed the tooth belonged to the missing man and his lover was arrested. During questioning, she denied any involvement at first, but later confessed to the murder, claiming she wanted revenge for financially providing for him during their relationship. After killing him, she cut up his body and asked a friend to help her dispose of it. She confessed to using a blender to mince her partner's flesh, cooking it with machbouz, a traditional dish, and serving it to a group of Pakistani construction workers from a nearby site. The woman was sent to a hospital to determine if she was suffering from a mental illness, as she's meant to face trial after the investigation is completed.
Thanks for watching.